Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are back on the update 1.89 dev server, and it's time to have a look at the crown jewel of the Japanese naval forces. This is the Furutaka, or as it should be known, the heavy cruiser that the Japanese Navy is getting. It has access to 3 sets of 200mm or 203mm to be exact guns in dual mounts. You can see 2 sat here and then 1 on the booty. Then you have 4 120mm guns, 6 25mm guns in dual mounts, and 16 torpedoes. So you can see that they could have gone a little bit more crazy with this heavy cruiser, but it seems like they're trying to bridge the gap between light cruisers and heavies and picked one which is kind of in, the middle. I would say that they could have gone a lot crazier now with the heavy cruiser that they picked, and I think this one is a great addition instead to make sure that we don't have insane power creep, instead just a little bit as we go up the ranks. The first thing to spot about the Furutaka is the fact that it has a lot of smaller engines instead of larger engines compared to many other ships of its size. It also has 1 major smoke funnel and 1 minor one, where the majority of machines have at least 2, even 3 sometimes. So for me, knocking out this machine's propulsion should be quite easy to do. Now, the main thing about the Furutaka is, of course, its guns. The 203mm are massive. They should do a lot of damage. They do only have 3 rounds per minute, so they're going to act very similarly to the Kern and other machines like that with their 150s, where they should do a lot of damage once they hit, but you've got to make sure that they hit. Another nice addition to this ship, along with a lot of Japanese destroyers and light cruisers, is the fact that it can reload its torpedoes. So instead of just having 1 salvo of 4 aside, instead you have 8, and you can catch the enemy off guard, especially when they are being recharged. So you have 16 torpedoes in total, 18 on either side, and you can see them set up in these areas. So you fire off your 4, and then the enemy thinks, oh, well, I don't have to worry about it anymore, and then you fire off another 4, and then they're like, oh god, what are we going to do? The 120mm are set up in the central points of the heavy cruiser to make sure that it's, either you can use them for auxiliary, against anti-air, or you can use them against planes or naval boats, whether they're small or large. The main focus should be the large guns that are sat on this thing. And also, of course, the AA being 6 dual 25s. I think that's a pretty nice complement of AA. I wish it was a little bit more, especially when we have machines like the Kiyoshimo and also the Akizuki running around. What is interesting also about the Furutaka is it has a vehicle before it, right? And the Furutaka has 680 crew. The Agano, which is seen as a destroyer, actually has more crew than it. It also has way more guns when it comes to just individual guns. But, the fact is it doesn't have 200s. There is another machine, a light cruiser, which does have 200s. It has 6 of them, and this would technically be classed as a heavy cruiser if we looked at a different standard. But instead, let's just focus on the Furutaka, which is technically, by Gaijin standards and by many others, the first heavy cruiser that we have in game. Armor is incredibly important for these machines, and this one doesn't have a ton of armor compared to others. It has serviceable armor. It will get you through the day against HE shells, and that's basically all you need, this to do. It needs to be able to deal with the HE shells coming in from other cruisers, coming in from other entities to hit you. We can see here that the Citadel armor is 105 with 76mm on the outside, 57 around the 200s, showing that they definitely armored them well, 52 below as well. So the ammo, is well protected, not as protected as some other ships, but good enough, and the central belt is good enough as well to stop HE, and that's all it needs to do. If it doesn't stop the HE, then guess what? Your ammo goes poof, and so do your torpedoes. Everything goes up, and then, you know, you are dead. It's as simple as that. Modifications-wise, for this machine, you start off with the 203mm HE, which only has 93mm of pen. This isn't good enough to go through the majority of light cruisers that you're going to fight. Therefore, the APBC shell is going to be required to do enough damage to knock out other light cruisers before they team up on you and take you out as well. So it is a rank 1 modification. I'd say it's definitely a necessity for it. When it comes to the 120mm, you have access to HE and also HE distance fuse. It's pretty much up to you what you want to take or what you're more comfortable with, but overall for me it doesn't really make a difference. The only thing it makes a difference against is aircraft, and since you have the 25mm, it's up to you. Do you want to commit your 120s to aircraft, or do you want to commit them to killing other ships, you know? Obviously, the other stuff, smokescreen, not too important. New pumps and engine maintenance, very important. And so is, if you ever got upgrades for the 25mm, that would be massively important. But unfortunately, we don't have that yet. And therefore, they're just stuck with tracer shells of all things, which is absolutely horrific for those 25mm for the Japanese. Let's get this thing in a test cell. Technically, this is the largest ship class that we've seen in game, even though there are 2 technical heavy cruisers in the Soviet tree, and also another one in this tree as well. Sorry I'm back, I just had to deal with something really quick. So we're back looking at the Furutaka, and as you can see, the 25mm on the front are trying to deal with that mini ship over there. And the other things is, of course, the 203mm, they take a very long time to turn. One of the things as well to also think about with this machine is the reload for the main guns is incredibly long, but as you can see, they do so much damage to just destroyers. Now understand, a lot of the time you're probably not going to face destroyers in this thing, you're going to face light cruisers. So the damage that I'm showing here is obviously incredibly good, but it's against an enemy you will normally not fight. Good night. Instead, you'll probably fight something like this. This is a Kern. It has 150mm guns. It's seen as a decent light cruiser, not one of the best. The Brooklyn is seen as better than it right now. So let's just see how it deals with a HE barrage, and I'm pretty sure I've missed it. I hit the toe front of it and set it on fire. The other thing to also think about while we're here is the reload of these guns. It is taking an incredibly long time to reload them, 20 seconds. But also remember that I have my crews at 0%. My crews on this are at the lowest ebb that they can be, therefore think about them at their maximum. Maybe 15 seconds could easily be something that is attainable. Maybe the fact that we have maybe even lower than that or higher, who knows. But you can see even the HE from the 200mm are not doing a lot against this vehicle. And this is a problem with just HE in general. I've brought it up many times with the... I don't like the way that HE works as a mechanism in naval combat. I don't like the fact that it's used as a, just a first step for everything, instead of what it should be used as, which is a tactical use. I don't like how it's just the worst version of what we already should have. It looks like the Kern is listing quite a lot, and we haven't really done anything to it yet. That was a big hit, though. I'll give it that, and it is only at 60% buoyancy. So we are doing decent damage to it. Another thing as well is you can see that there is a plane just sat on this ship, and it's definitely joins a long list of reconnaissance planes or float planes that are just, sat on ships. And it is always a wonder whether they will make it to game in some form of interesting way. And I'm sure that there are some mechanics being worked on to do with them. unfortunately those shots just glanced off the Kern because it's in such a weird listed state. It would be nice if they unflooded the thing. You can tell the difference between the AP and the HE though, at least by the tracers, so that should make it easier to distinguish what you're actually using. And you can see the damage that we're putting out with these 200s. It would be nice to be a little bit more. And a lot of people were calling for bigger heavy cruisers. You know, bigger bruisers, especially when it came to the Japanese. I'm happy that they personally decided to go a little bit lower because of the fact that if they went any higher, we could have had a serious power creep session on our hands. The fact that they only wanted to add one heavy cruiser to one nation instead of one to each of them, this was definitely the right way to go. You know, add it to the nation which has just been added, and also add it in not such a way that it is going to break the game. And you do that by adding not an absolutely huge heavy cruiser like we could have seen, especially when it comes to the Japanese. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see how this works. It's obviously going to do a lot of damage to people, but I'm worried about its secondary and auxiliary stuff and how well that's going to do. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank B. Young, Blackie, Daniel Stanton, John Ryman, Martinez, Matity, Moxie, Nito, Nick Graham, Alobralo, Sebastian Corona, Super Cacti, and Elove Goats and Seductive Trashcan for supporting the channel.